We watched Stranger Things, season 3. I grew up in small town Indiana, so the show hits home with me, and I absolutely love kind of the retro theme to it because it's like our childhood. But we had our whole family over and we're watching the show, and it prompted me to ask you a question. Hey, if the Demogorgon or the Mind Flayer show up in Tampa and destroy your house, is our insurance going to take care of it or not?
It's so funny too when we watch shows like that. You're thinking about it from a real estate perspective, and then I start thinking about it from an insurance perspective. And yes, potentially. So you think about like Hopper's house, how the alien, sorry if anyone hasn't watched it yet, but how the alien kind of destroyed his house, right? So you could argue that something caused damage to the house that was outside of their control, and then that should be covered by your homeowner's insurance. Even though it was an alien on top of the house, it was still an object that hit the home and damaged the home, so that potentially could be covered by your insurance. Now, if you have people inside the home and they're damaged by the alien, that's a different story and probably not covered by your insurance.
Right, because they chose to go there. And I think the interesting thing about watching shows like that and pop culture is it does give you reminders about real estate insurance to think about things like, do I need an endorsement on my policy for aliens from the upside down showing up? And a lot of times there's curveballs and things that could happen that are that the insurance carrier has to make a decision about, but nonetheless that could be considered like natural disaster, force majeure. It could be considered, I mean, who really knows what it could be considered, but
and there is alien insurance. There's a couple of carriers that do offer alien insurance,
which
such as
like
if you're abducted or something like that, it's covered as well.
Oh, no kidding. If you're abducted, that'd be a hard one to prove. That would be like the guy in Independence Day,
Right.
Randy Quaid, before he fled the country. In Independence Day, some funny stuff from that, but nonetheless, doing what we do every day, it's always, when you're watching something, you're always thinking about it from a perspective of, our jobs and our businesses and what would happen with insurance, and that would be kind of a challenge for you. The calls that you would get from that, the claims, we would obviously be dealing with homes that we have listed kind of destroyed and neighborhoods destroyed, the cars that were damaged.
Yep.
Yeah,
so have full coverage. Sorry.
Yeah, so nonetheless, there is alien coverage, which I find kind of interesting. So. There's a little bit of it seems like a lot of the TV shows right now are kind of apocalyptic. A lot of the popular ones, you've got obviously Stranger Things that's got a cult-like following. The Walking Dead has always had that type of following. And so when you see things like, earthquakes and such happening, people start to, get concerned. But there are ways to properly account for that from an insurance perspective. Here in the state of Florida, earthquakes aren't something we have a lot in common, but in California, it's a common thing where people want to make sure that they have coverage, because earthquakes just show up. Different than like floods or hurricanes, we have lots of notice. We know that something is coming. With an earthquake, it just kind of happens. But nonetheless, there are ways to account for the coverage of that. There, insurance carriers and endorsements and different things that people are concerned about, an earthquake and the state of Florida separating and floating off into the water. There's insurance coverage to protect people's financial ramifications
Right.
and stuff
And
like
I think
that.
people, the statistics show us that 50% of floods happen during the summer months. And I think people, when they see, a hurricane or a named storm happen, they call and they want to get insurance. Well, unfortunately, once there's a named storm, unless you're purchasing a house, you can't add flood insurance. In fact, if you're not purchasing a house, you still have to wait 30 days before that flood insurance goes into effect. So while the summer is a good memory
It's a great reminder.
Right, to get flood insurance, you definitely want to be thinking about that well in advance.
Because you're going to have to wait. And again, look, it's logical. The insurance companies don't want to write you a flood policy when there's a storm out there because, their risk is greater. And they also want a delay period because they don't want someone to, grab insurance and then file a claim for something that happened, prior to. They want to be able to document and protect themselves. So there is a bit of a waiting period. But again, all of these things that happen, the earthquakes, the floods, it's a great reminder to look at your coverage, know what kind of coverage you have, so that if you do have one of these, major storms, major hurricanes, earthquake in Florida, which would be odd, alien attack, whatever it is, you want to make sure you have coverage for it. So looking at your policy, checking your rates, talking to your agent, talking to another agent, getting a second opinion. I think getting a second opinion is important. We're always telling people, you know, look, if you went in for, you know, if someone found that you needed brain surgery, would you just go and talk to one, or would you talk to two or three and get different opinions? Same thing goes for insurance. If you think about it, you may pay, you know, 50, hundreds of thousands of dollars for insurance over your lifetime. You could be overpaying for long periods of time. An annual checkup on your insurance is something that we just strongly recommend.
Yep, and then some of the things that we were talking about, like the what-if scenarios. So like, yes, if we had the alien invasion or apocalypse and you had a water main break, right? Some people think about flood insurance as storms only, but it's not just that. It's whether or not two or more houses have like an inundation of water that comes into the home. So a water main breaking, like someone doing construction down the street and they break a pipe and it just flows the water. There was a story out of Philly over the summer where a city had a water main break and it ended up having 15 million gallons of water flooding into not only businesses but local houses. And so that, if they didn't have flood insurance, they wouldn't be covered. Now, granted, you'd probably sue the city, but you know, you can't sue the alien that comes in.
And who knows if the city has money? Let's face it, there's a lot of cities out there that don't,
Right.
that would have a hard time settling that. And maybe they have insurance, who knows? But another point on that same topic, I saw something too, like a wastewater treatment plant or something had an issue, and it flooded like, you know, a neighborhood. And that would be an issue where flood insurance is going to help you out, and your regular insurance may not. So
Right.
again, that's where, you know, litigation's gonna happen, lawyers are gonna get involved, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of different insurance companies, but nonetheless, you wanna make sure that you get covered and, you know, your stuff is